Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of my self-critique series. In the last video,
Koda-kyun
recommended that I should do the 7.37 average from Indonesian Championships in 2019, so I'm going to be doing that today. If you have any official averages that you want me to self-critique, please do let me know in the comment section below. Alright, let's get straight to it. Alright, the first solve is actually the current NR single, 5.47, so obviously it's a pretty smooth solve. The cross solution is actually very easy. Okay, the cross edges are here, 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 and here. I did D2, R2 to solve the blue and green cross edges relative to each other, and then D prime, R, L prime. That solution is optimal, so there's no complaints. However, for the first pair, I did this pair, which I rotated first, U prime, and then solve it to the back. However, there is this green-red pair that is actually slightly better because you don't need to rotate and it's also regripless. For the second pair, I did U prime and then solved this to the back. That is probably the optimal solution and it's very fast. For the third pair, there are two options. I can do either the green-red or the green-orange pair. The green-orange is 2 gen but pretty long. But I chose to do the green-red one, and I did it by doing U prime, take it out like this, and then U prime, L prime, UL. It's not a bad choice. Maybe I could have considered something like U prime and then R, L prime, U2, L, R prime. It requires some small regrips, but the move count is shorter. The solution that I did had no rotations, and it allowed me to look ahead well to the next F12 pair, which I just did, and it is the optimal solution. And finally, for OLL, I did U2 and skip. Nothing to say there. Overall, the first solve had a good solution, smooth execution with some minor lockups, and haha, PLL skip. The solution for white cross is pretty hard, as I couldn't find anything that is less than 7 moves. What I did in the solve was solve this one, R prime, D prime, L prime, and then D2, rotate, and inserted these two. Maybe I could have considered doing the same solution but regripless from this angle by doing B prime, D prime, F prime, like that, and then D2, R prime, F. For the first pair, I chose this one, which is probably the best choice because it solves to the back and it's very fast. For the second pair, I looked ahead into these two. Again, no complaints there. It's probably the best solution. And then for the next F12 pair, I did this one. In normal circumstances, you would want to solve it like this. But in this solve, I chose to rotate because the next pair is on this slot and it will be easier to execute for the next pair. And finally, for the last pair, I did U, rotate, and then sledge, insert. Now, that solution is not bad, but it doesn't preserve EO. If I wanted to preserve EO, I could have done something like U2, F, U prime, F prime, and then insert like that, which gives me a TZBLL. But since I chose to do this solution, I got a non-EO OLL case. And here I hesitated a bit. I did U prime, and then this. Since then, I learned a better finger trick for this case, which is regripless. So that back sedge is pretty tricky to learn, but it's really fast. And for PLL, I got F perm. Overall, for this solve, the cross was pretty sad because there were no quick solutions. F12 was pretty smooth, but I got bad last layer cases and my execution for OLL is not optimal. Here we have the third solve, which is a 6.92. And this solve had a lot of blocks. So there's this blue-red pair thingy, and there's also this free pair. So what I did was L2 F prime to start building the square, and in order to complete the X cross, the blue-red edge, which is here, needs to end up here. So after L2 F prime, I inserted this one first, R prime, to get the F12 pair out of the way, and then B2, which solves the blue-red edge, then D2, rotate U prime to get this F12 pair out of the way, then R prime, F, U prime, F prime. This solution is pretty great because it solves both of the F12 pairs to the left, and the execution overall is very smooth. Now, I could have considered doing a rotationless solution by doing the same thing, L2 F prime R prime, D2 D2, and then instead of taking the F12 pair out, just do F prime anyway because it's still a 3-move insert to the back. For the third pair, I saw that these two corners are already solved and the green-orange edge is here, so I just did keyhole, D prime RU R prime D. Yeah, no complaints with that. And for last pair, I did U2 R prime U R to set up to a 3-mover. A better solution would have been this R2 F R F prime R, and then solve it to the back because it doesn't require any rotations. For OLL, I executed this alg pretty well. And then G perm. For the G perm AUF, I did D prime U prime U prime, but it would be a bit faster if I did an A though, like this. Overall, for the third solve, the solutions were great. The start of F12 was slightly locky, but everything else is smooth. Okay, for the fourth solve, I got a 7.37. For cross, the white edges are here, 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 and here. I did D prime R to solve these two relative to each other while putting the green and orange edges in the right place. And then D2 R prime, and before doing the last F prime, I did a U prime F prime to make this free pair. So I think the solution is great. It only adds one move to make a pair that solves very easily to the back. Yeah, please do L U to L prime because it's regripless. Don't do U prime L U prime L prime. For the second pair, I saw this one. There are two ways to solve this pair. You could hide it at the back like that. But the way I chose to do it is by pairing it up in the front, like this, which there's no problem with it. Then for the third and fourth pairs, they're basically interchangeable, but since I saw this edge first, it is the one that I did. Pair them up like this, and then finally double sexy for the last F12 pair. So that I got kind of lucky there because a lot of the solutions were RUL gen. And then for OLL, I hesitated a lot, and for this OLL CP, I usually execute it like this because it doesn't require any regrips. But I kind of locked up a bit and I switched to this F. So that cost me quite a lot of time. And for PLL, I executed the Z prime pretty well. Overall, the F12 in that solve was very, very fast and smooth, but that huge lockup in OLL cost me the sub 7.
12 seconds.
The last solve is also 7.81, which ties it for the worst solve of this average. And for cross, I'm not sure what happened, but I panicked and I didn't find the optimal solution. I did D, F, L, F to solve these two, and then R prime, D, L, D prime. Meanwhile, if I just inserted this white-blue edge first, it would have made everything a lot simpler. So R prime, D, solves the white blue edge to the back, and then the rest can be solved at the front. F, L, F, R prime. For the first pair, I did this pair, this orange blue pair, and it kind of feels like I got this case a lot in this average. For the second pair, I did this pair, which is already solved, so I just took it out and then insert. But what I should have seen is that by doing RU prime R prime, it sets this F12 pair up, and I could just do a multi-slot like this. Unfortunately, I didn't see that multi-slot, but I did recover pretty well by solving these two in the back without any hesitation. And then finally, I solved this pair. No complaints there. For OLL, I did this ALG and G perm with an ADO AOF. Overall, that solve was slightly slower than the other ones because I chose a bad cross solution and there was a minor lockup in OLL. Alright, that's it for this episode of self-critiquing or self-roasting. I was quite happy with this average because a lot of the F12 solutions were very smooth. Of course, I can't complain with the 5.47 single. I hope you learned something from this video. Maybe it's this F12 insert, or maybe something about AUFs. Anyway, that's it for this video. See you next time.